Welcome to the Garage Network podcast. Join us and the occasional special guest as we discuss everything automotive, from fixing cars as a technician, owning an automotive workshop or business, overall work-life balance, and even the occasional laugh. In this episode of TGN Torques, we're joined by Rodger Nardi from AASRA as we discuss a few changes that are happening within that space. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Welcome to TGN Talks. This is myself, Jeff Taylor, joined with Costa K and Rodger Nardi from AASRA. I think there's been lots of discussion regarding AASRA over the last sort of 18 months or so. Rodger, has it been going on?
The legislation came in, yeah. I've been on 12 months, but it's 18 months since the legislation kicked in.
Look, I think a fair bit's happened since the last time we've had Rodger on, actually. Like, I've personally been having some pretty decent feedback regarding the last few months. It definitely looks like it's turned a corner of some form. What do you reckon, Jeff? You're probably using AASRA as well.
Look, I think on the chat we had last time, Rodger, I think I may have said, I think maybe you're the guy, because I thought it was a bit of a, for want of a better, expression, but I thought it was a little bit of a shit show, so to speak. We can bleep that out, can't we, Costa? Yeah, of course we can. It was unorganised, and I really do feel like you've grabbed the bull by the horns there, and definitely not an easy job. And do you know what? I salute you for that. I think you were put, in the firing line, and I think you've done pretty well. I think they still work, and I've got some questions from the Garage Network members. I did ask the members what they would like to know. But I suppose before we go completely further, people still don't know what AASRA is. So would you like to, Rodger, just give us a reminder of who AASRA is and who you are?
And we estimate probably 20% of the market know what AASRA is, and bear in mind we mean mechanical, collision, they're the two big ones, with locksmiths as well. But fundamentally, AASRA is the legislation basically says whatever a car company shares with its dealer network, or agent in the case of the collision industry, has to be made available to the aftermarket. So this is service and repair information, including diagnostic hardware and software. So really, from 2002 onwards, every vehicle that's coming to Australia via a car company, doesn't cover grey imports, is covered by this scheme.
Okay. But that was, you made that sound really easy. Then really straightforward.
Where's the catch? No.
It probably is. So look, thanks for doing that, Rodger. Can I run over a couple of questions from some of the members? I will try and sort of pick out some good ones. So somebody's asked, if I'm a dealer, why do I need photo proof of the owner's license and rego to get a key code and immobilizer code?
If they're a dealer, what are we saying? A drug dealer, or are we saying a dealership?
No, I dare say they're going to be. So whether it's a dealer or an independent, if they've got the AASRA login and gone through that info, they've got everything done, and they want to program a key or an immobilizer or whatever, they've then got to do another step each time when they've already done this for security side with AASRA. Maybe they've done the vehicle security professional, is I think that's how we call it. Why do they then need to do more information on top?
There's quite a bit covered in the legislation under security and safety, bearing in mind that at the moment now, one car is stolen every 11 minutes in Australia. And where it's bloomed out is when you start getting stop-start, you start getting the electronics. In some ways have made it easier to steal cars, even though you'd think immobilizers there to stop that. But so really the legislation requires, from our viewpoint, we have to vet the individual, but then we have to also then know the individual has said, this person standing in front of me matches the driver's license and this registration paper is the car in front of me, that's where that comes in. We have to keep those records for 2 years, just in case the police at any stage can say, look, this key code was issued, this car ended up being stolen. We now need to track that whole path back. So look, the software's automated. So really it's just getting used to saying, give us your driver's license, your car registration, and that gets uploaded to in the software, and then the car company provides the code. So yeah, it's not really something we came up with. It's more a matter of that's required for us legally.
I think in most cases that's not too hard of an issue. I think if you're part of a dealership though, where you got, if you're just a tech and in the workshop, have to go through 3-4 people before you speak to a customer. I could see where that could be a sort of triple handled process. But I mean, I personally would rather, I've got quite a new European car. I really would feel uncomfortable knowing that all someone needs is a VIN number to get my keys.
Exactly, yeah.
Because realistically, lift the wiper up and I can see it,
I get it. Okay, I get both your points, but so I've done my AASRA login, I've done my hybrid vehicle access, and I've done my VSP access. I think it is called VSP if it isn't, shoot me.
Yeah.
To do the VSP, I've got to send you a police document, a federal police check, driving licenses, all this stuff. So that's not enough. That you vetted me.
Well, what about this, Jeff? Though, what about if
you've done? I know what you're saying, but if you bring your BMW to my workshop, Costa, is that not then down to me to make sure that your information is above board? Not that we've got to go through another process. Can it not be done that way?
Think of this as a consumer. I like my security, Jeff. I think you're aware of that. But think of this as a consumer. Now, I have taken my car to Jeff to get a new key made. I've got something shady under my hat planned in a year's time to get this car stolen. Car disappears. I know. I never told Jeff to make me a key. It must be Jeff. I mean, you surrendering that information, if you get my driver's license, my registration details, well, why was someone giving that information for? Because you were a key. I can just say, I never asked Jeff to make me a key. Why has he made me a key for?
Well, look at, that would that not be kind of under the lines why I was vetted to be a vehicle security professional?
What if the customer's shady?
I think,
yeah. Do you know you've got a point, but the more I think about it, the more I think, well, we've gone through them steps. A lot of these workshops are able to carry out registration checks. They do that work for the
AMS.
I'm almost saying Vehicle Standards Agency there, but we're not in the UK anymore. But so you're in a position of power and trust, so to speak, to do the right thing. That's.
I think. Look, the thing here is, and this is where we have to come from. This, and this is more the legal advice, and also from the police. There has to be an unbroken chain of evidence. So that means what we're really saying is that because you've been vetted, but we've had. I'll tell you some of the ones we've had knocked back. We've had some where somebody says they put an application in for a key code, and then it gets knocked back because they didn't upload the person's driver's license and they didn't upload the registration. And when we contact them, they say the bloke doesn't have a driver's license and, the car's unregistered. And I said, well, how do you know he owns the car? And he said, he looks trustworthy. So, we've got to have, and that's, we had one the other day where someone just simply on a scrawl bit of paper said, I own this car. And that was it. And it was like, so we said, well, we have to, there is provision in there for things like, a wrecked car, an auction car, if it's part of a fleet. But at some point we have to have the evidence to say who literally did that all the way through and the approval. Because people will potentially, we don't know at this point whether cars have been stolen as a result of this. So that's why we've got to keep it tight.
So look, that is an interesting point. I mean, I remember back in the motherland, a logbook wasn't proof of ownership. So even if you've got your registration document, does that in Australia, is that a exact proof of ownership?
Well, yeah, the registration paper will have the names and address of the person, and then the driver's license should have the same.
Yeah.
So you're matching. So the person in front of at the workshop level is able to validate the driver's license and rego details match, and the person's face in front of them matches the picture on the driver's license. Okay. So that's common sense, I think.
No, I agree, and
I'm comfortable with that.
And I'm not here to. I'm just putting out the questions.
And, no. And we've had that before.
People trying to be what the members are going to ask, and in a nice way. So look, I think we've covered that. Should we move on to the next question? I've got.
What do we need all that for a radio pin? No, joking.
Oh dear, Costa. Hang on a minute. So. Look, we may be kind of scattered around. I'm just going through them in order that I've got these questions. Fine. So I'll try and not do any repeat questions. But what happens once a missing information report is lodged?
Okay, so look, firstly, in our privacy, when you sign up, it does allow us to be able to share the details of the person with the car company. And we're pretty guarded about that. But where it's a missing information report and you fill out those details, we want to solve that as quick as possible. So in most cases, as soon as that hits, we read it and make sure it's something that we can't answer. I mean, sometimes we're able to answer it straight away. But if it's something where they say, I've been onto so-and-so's site, we've looked for this, the model's not there, or we then have the support at each car company as far as an email. We forward that on and we tell them, let us know, but if it's quicker to go straight back to the workshop, our issue is speed. We don't want to become a bottleneck. So that's how that works with the missing information report. We tag them by the brand. So, whichever car brand it is, we tag them whether it's a resolved missing information report, unresolved, and then whether it's and we keep that, and then we go through that. We've got probably at least half a dozen or more open at the moment. After our last meeting, I have now gone through every missing information report and re-tagged some of them. So I created a tag specifically for J2534 because some of them related to diagnostics. And what we want to be able to do is know there isn't an answer now for it, as in when is Hyundai going to have J2534 or Kia or whoever. So we keep that tagged. And when it happens, we go back over it again and say, this is now available. So it's a process, but it's in our ticketing system and our email. So, yeah.
So basically, when somebody lodges at MAR, does it sit in an inbox? I'll have a look at that tomorrow. Or, is somebody on it?
No. Look, I'll probably look. If I pick any normal day, we forget about Melbourne Cup Day. If we pick any normal day, I'm going to say that all emails, whether they're missing information, whether it's an email to support@asra.com.au or missing information report, it comes into our email desktop in Freshdesk, which is the software that handles it. And between Natasha and I, we're going through those all the time during the day. It's probably like at the end of the day, there's none outstanding. There might be some late in the day, or we get some from WA or whatever else in the later. But no, they're generally always actioned within the same day or the early next day. There's no great delay. The delay for us is where we're sending it onto a car company and we're still trying to get the answer from them, which can be very frustrating. We've got a couple of IT issues at the moment, which is with Stellantis overseas. And so we've got a number of missing information reports that relate to that issue. So we can't close it. We don't close it until it's resolved.
And when you mentioned, you jump on the MIR, you then deal with the manufacturer in question. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you get some pushback or maybe, them dragging their feet? more than what we should be. How do you deal with that?
Look, that is one of the frustrating things, because AASRA, we don't have any powers per se.
Yeah.
So, our main thing is the day-to-day running of the scheme. We can organise mediation, not that that's happened. We can, what else do? We refer to the AACC if action's needed, a couple of other things we do. So the trouble becomes is, let's just say we felt that was unrealistic time frame. Our avenue is refer it to the ACCC. That sort of doesn't help from day to day. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as if there's that system set up so that someone can find someone, in 1 or 2 days. Unfortunately, so what it really have. We just keep hammering at the car company, and we'll say, look, what's happening here? And look, in most cases, it's not necessarily that they're dragging their feet, but they do know that the clock is ticking from when we first forward that. And that's why sometimes people will do things, and I'll say CC AASRA in, so that because sometimes the communication is happening direct from a workshop to, particularly if it's a non-participating brand, I'll say CC us in, so that we also know when that whole communication started. By and large, the car companies generally try and solve it.
So it's kind of like, you CC your mate with big arms and big muscles to, have a lynch at the car company to make things happen. No, I like that. I like that, Rodger.
The other thing that the background of that happens is that as I mentioned, they're tagged by a car company. So at some point, and the ACCC setting up software for this, we'll be lodging those all directly with them. And what will happen is that really what they'll be looking at is saying this brand has had 20% of these missing information reports or problems, wherever they may be, and yet they only represent 3% of the vehicle park. So that's where it'll be looked at. You'd expect the bigger the amount of volume a car company has, then, they're going to have more issues coming up. But that's not necessarily the case.
Are you finding that most of the manufacturers are quite happy to play ball once they've had a few conversations? Like, is there a relationship starting to build between yourself and those manufacturers?
Look, it does. Look, generally, I find them okay. We have a quarterly meeting with them, and generally find it okay. Where I guess it gets, problematic a bit is where a car company, particularly initially, said, we don't believe we have to provide diagnostic software. And that had to be clarified by the ACCC. And I get it from the car company's viewpoint, because
100%.
It was not clear in the legislation. I mean, if you read the clauses, you read things and thought, well, you can't do that without diagnostic software, but it didn't specifically say it. So that was qualified in December last year. So it then meant that December on, car companies had to then start getting that organised. That's why we've still got, I think we've got 70% that we would see have their scheme offering complete. And that's why we've still got some brands that have still got to do day and month and get it sorted.
Is that the plan for all the manufacturers eventually? Be have a day and month offering as well? Is that the long-term plan?
Well, that's in the legislation. You know how the scheme pricing for, say, manuals, service manuals, whatever is day, month, year. Well, that same applies to, if you like, diagnostic software is scheme information, day, month, year. Now, there is provision there. So some car companies might say, well, the way we've got it set up is you buy it per VIN or model. That sort of flexibility is in there because some car companies are set up that way. But the main issue is that you're not confronted with, I've got this car, I need to reflash the transmission control module, and it's going to cost me $6,500 to buy their tough book, their ECI, and a year's worth of software. So that's the bit that has to be solved through this.
Yeah, excellent. Cool.
Yeah, because look, I think there's some grey areas with what J2534 can and actually can't do.
Yeah, exactly.
In the brands that I do, in one specific brand, I much prefer to have the genuine device, which took me a year to get, or the best part of a year to get. That's not going to work for everybody. A lot of these workshops, like Costa's workshop, for example, it's multi-brand. You've got a Hyundai, i30, and then you've got an almost new BMW X6 in there or whatever it is. So J2534 for certain simple tasks is ideal, but I'd just be very careful. I would be very careful doing certain things with J2534, but which is going to lead to my next question, and that is somebody asked if there could be some type of a training guide, because I'm not saying that maybe you'd need some help on this, Rodger, but having somebody that knows the manufacturer's portals, that knows the ins and outs of the tools, because I think there's also a potential of cars to maybe suffer some mishaps while people are there with their J2534 devices and wireless internets and old Telwin and Absol battery charges on a car trying to pull 70 or 80 amps during programming.
Yeah, I've actually got it down. This is one of the things I discussed with Stuart from the AAA regarding the trade show next year, the expo, was that because workshops haven't been exposed to J2534 before because they couldn't get the software. Some people get it, but I think the biggest thing in the industry is training on that. I probably would always, if I was going to suggest something to someone and said, I've got a J2534 device, I wouldn't get it day one and say, well, I'm going to reflash this module. I would start off simply doing things like health checks and getting familiar with it and getting familiar with the. Unfortunately, what you're saying would be great if we had the ability to know the navigation of all the websites. We're not allowed access.
Yeah.
We can't see it because we're not a workshop under the legislation. AASRA is the scheme advisor. We're not a workshop, so we don't comply. So, and having said that, at the end of the day, as you know, there's 2.5 of us. So to try and do that, but I think somewhere there's going to be, as we grow, I'd like to think the next person on board would have a heavy diagnostic background, but probably from an OE side. It'd be great to have someone that's worked with across half a dozen brands. They're familiar with the website, their websites, they're familiar with that process. That would help just from a support viewpoint. But we've got to get there first. We've got to get the membership up to a certain level to, frankly, even pay for that.
But then you kind of end up being, are you like an ombudsman, or are you, could that change into being a remote programming company?
Oh, we do that, but you've obviously got
assistants. So
you've got the likes of AutoLogic or Opus IVS. You've now got Repairify just about to launch, I think.
Yeah,
this week, I think they're launching. So that's a remote diagnostic thing, and they're both used to this from overseas. That's going to help workshops, obviously. I don't know the business model and the costs of all this, but that's really where basically, I guess, at a workshop level, you're connecting hopefully a battery stabilizer and then the J25 device, and then through TeamViewer, you're having somebody else then drive it.
Scary.
Well, it is, because if you get it wrong, it can be an ugly bill.
I might buy a tow truck. No, hopefully, everybody nails it. But I think your advice before, Rodger, was bang on. Scratch the surface. Don't try and surf until you can swim. It's I think
the training would be really good now. And there's obviously stuff online, but
if only I knew a network of people that gave a shit and maybe knew some people that could do these things. I don't know.
I've got no idea.
I'm saying nothing.
That's right.
Sorry, Costa.
Right. So I'll say it then. No.
We can't say it.
I think that's something that we can definitely.
It's on the cards. So it's in there. We're in talks.
And I think if there's a realistic cost involved, you could do all the whole training online.
You can.
You don't have to be. In other words, there's going to be extra work involved for people. So I think it's realistic that people pay a small fee to maybe do a training course.
Yeah, I think the only hurdle is that what you were saying before is finding someone from the OE space that knows the OE side of things so well that's willing to also then share that with the aftermarket is it's a bit hard to find. But I think Jeff's made some headway in that aspect. To be continued.
I'm saying nothing. So this is about Rodger. This is all about Rodger and
we have raised the question at our last quarterly meeting with the car companies. The question was put out there whether there'd be any interested in providing J2534 training, even at the expo or something like that.
Well,
and
can I ask, and sorry to go a bit off topic, but is it my understanding also that training is in our legislation?
No.
It's not. So we can't get access to OE sort of training as an independent workshop?
No. So what it is it's just service and repair information. But so things that are in, say, Europe. So where it gets confusing is if you go to some of the European brands and you look, you think, oh, this scheme offer is by hour, day, week, month, year, and it includes spare parts catalogs, it includes training. That's because they're just basically saying this is what we've got to do in Europe. So here you have the same thing. But training, no, is not included. Either is spare parts. That comes up now and then, not a lot, but both those things would be good. And look, it can be hard too, because training for some car companies isn't necessarily some, it can just more than anything just be a trainer. They all come into the one location and there's a trainer there. So I'm not sure how you replicate that in the aftermarket.
Just offer it to the aftermarket, same thing. Have the one trainer and get. And I'll guarantee you, if any manufacturers listening to this, you'll probably find that if they decided one day to offer that sort of OE training to the aftermarket world, you'll probably find a lot of independents lining up to sit a day and get trained by a master tech.
We'll all be buying those hours, days, and weeks.
Weeks, then you start pushing.
Why get your aftermarket tool out? You get your J2534 device. Your manufacturers train you how to do it. Do it like a dealer.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to be throwing an ad somewhere up, which basically says just a bit of part-time work for someone to record a video on, how you navigate whatever brand, and then J25 training. You might get some.
Suppose it would be potentially be some copyright there. I know with some of the manufacturers that I've joined, you're not allowed to share. There's things you're not allowed to share, and last thing we'd want to do is get anybody in trouble. Unless do you know anybody, Rodger?
No, but I don't think. Yeah, you're right. You couldn't video and publish their website. But what you can do is create a demo mode. You could create something based on it without showing information, and that wouldn't be a breach of copyright, I don't think.
I think there's plans in place anyway. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, good.
Okay, so somebody's asked, can you please have a telephone helpline?
Well, we've had that since January, February?
Okay, I'll just put it on the garage network.
That's a tick for that.
No, every email that goes out, every support email, and on the bottom of our web page is our email address and our 1300 number.
Well, when they say this goes to show I've never had to lodge an MIR because you're doing something well there, Rodger. So I've never had to see your number.
We'd get I mean, it's on just our web page.
Yeah,
our homepage. You'll find down the bottom there's our contact details, but it's we'd get, it can vary. We'd get 15, sometimes 30 phone calls a day, depending on what's happening. But
decent volume. Decent volume.
Another question would be around communication. I'm not going to say who asked this question, Costa. But somebody would like. Do you have like an AASRA newsletter now? Maybe this question that I've seen is a bit old.
I'm about to do another e-news. I was just waiting for something. So look, we've done about 4 of them. Every so often we just send out a what we call it, just an e-news. Basically just an update. We don't try and make it too big. It's not meant to be glossy or whatever else is just to say, here's some new facts about AASRA, and specifically an update. So, you know, for instance, the sort of thing we put in it was last week we put up Renault's information. So this is now being able to buy Euro 5 software for reprogramming, etc. So that's all gone up. So we would then try and get that in the next D news and say, look, Renault's now up there. You know, we wherever possible, we create some sort of navigation document, and that's a hit and miss. Some car companies give that to us, some don't. So we would all, you know, we've got about 16 or 20 car companies where we'll have a navigation document sitting at the top of the first pricing panel. But by the way, our number is 1300 222 772. Now, just as a side issue, if you're ringing the ABC talkback, theirs is identical except they're 774. So every couple of times a week, and I had it today where someone rings up wanting to talk about something and they think they just go straight into it, you know.
Complaining about the toll charges are too high.
Yes, that's right. Yes, no, yeah, you get all sorts of stuff.
So another question is somebody, they're not talking about a specific manufacturer, but his cost, you know, saying some of these manufacturers are really, you know, maybe taking the Michael a little bit on the pricing. Is anything able to be done with that to be fair and reasonable?
Yeah, so fair and reasonable is an interesting thing. So from my viewpoint, what we do automatically is we look at the US and we look at Europe. And quite often, when I say we, quite often it's a workshop that's saying, well, hang on a second, this is, we'll pick $36.95 in the US, and now it's $139 in Australia, whatever. You know, so you have a dramatic increase. We'll then double check that is still the current price in those markets, and that is an issue under the legislation, because in the legislation, while it's fair market pricing, it does refer to their pricing in other markets. So, because otherwise, you know, the scheme wouldn't work if that was open slather. I mean, at the moment now, you've got a day's access. It could probably vary from $16 odd up to, I don't know, $250 a day. You know, like there's a big variance. To try and compare one brand to another brand, that's problematic, because that's hard to then do that. But certainly we compare to overseas markets, and and that is an issue.
It seems like we've had a few members that are still, or saying that they're still waiting for approval. So whether they've done something wrong in their application, is there? I mean, I'm sure there's an email that they can contact you to say it's not worked. Somebody's saying here they've been waiting for several months. I'm going to be honest. I think there's some user error every now and then, and I'm not blaming the member, but sometimes we just forget to tick that I accept this box, or we do something wrong, maybe just to go back and. But I think what seems to happen is, once they've made an application and maybe there's something wrong on there and it doesn't get to you, they can't then resubmit the application with their original email. Is that something that sounds correct?
Once the email's in our system, you can't use it twice. I'll tell you what happens at our end. Now, initially, if we go back when the legislation was first launched, there was a huge backlog. But of course, that was all cleared by January. So at the moment now, every day, I'm going to say nearly every day, every application is cleared that same day. Now, if a couple coming from Western Australia now, they'll be cleared first thing tomorrow morning. There's no lag in this at all. Yeah. Because, but where we have, I can tell you now on our dashboard, we've got just under 100 applications that haven't been submitted correctly. The biggest issue is people upload a license that's 5 years out of date, or they don't upload it at all. Now, we then automatically, in that process, we automatically send them emails, and we'll send them emails every week saying, look, send back a picture of your current driver's license and we'll upload and finish the application. I suspect what happens is if that goes into their spam or junk folder, We don't know that. We're emailing them saying that. I had one today. It had been, I think he'd been waiting about 3 weeks. And I said, yeah, we've emailed you on this date, this date, this date. Send it to me now and it'll be open this afternoon. So that's the biggest issue. It's to do with documentation. There's no delay our end on this. It's only if they've not provided something.
So what we'll do is when we post this on the network, we may put an email link if anybody is having issues. Let's just get it dealt with. You know, the best is something that I preach about. The way to deal with a problem is to deal with a problem.
Yeah,
you know, awesomely. You know, let's smash it out and get these people happy. And I think the more people that get on the AASRA wagon, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, and as I say, we regularly go through and chase them. But we've only got the one email contact, but based on the account, and we're saying, look, you know, provide your driver's license or whatever it is. You know, some of them are normally that, and some people assume. I mean, some people are asking why their account isn't open. They haven't actually even got to the point of paying for it. So we go into it and say, well, you're only at step 2 of 3. You know, so that's the other thing too. But no, anyone that thinks they're waiting and it's that they're waiting more than a day or 2, then send us an email at support@asra.com.au and it'll be solved very quickly.
Next question. Am I allowed to mention a manufacturer? Am I allowed to say the name?
Yeah, you can mention.
Daily software subscriptions for Mazda. Now, some of these aren't quite, you know, they're not a day old, these questions.
Yeah.
So some of these you may have already smashed, but I hope you haven't. I wasn't going to look like an idiot again.
No. Look, at the moment now, the main brands that we're tentatively hoping by the end of this month, and we're only talking 2 weeks away now, that we'll have day and month added to their offer. Mazda, Nissan, Kia, Hyundai, Suzuki. So they're 4 of those are going to be top 10. So they're the ones that are now, in some cases, I know that they're doing the final field testings now in Australia.
Field testing of J2534.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. People will give them money.
Yeah,
that's sensational. They can be in the suits in the nice offices, and we will give them money.
Yeah, I know. No. Look, at the end of the day, if this is handled right, it should be good. I always say to the car companies, I say, look, you've got 4,000 dealers combined, okay, and that's where you make your revenue for selling cars. You could be tapping into 25,000 plus. 100%. You know, like the potential is huge. And if they really wanted to take one step further, they could offer spare parts as well. You know, so the potential to be, but I say that ad nauseum to them. I think they should need to look at. Even the smaller brands, I think, could make it. And the other side of this too is if you're a small brand with 70 odd dealers, do you really want to know that someone breaks down in, as we've had these cases, I think I mentioned before, in Mount Isa, we've had it in Broken Hill, and we had it in Mildura, where the thing ends up on a trade truck going hundreds of kilometres to the nearest dealer, which is so far away, where it could have been handled by an aftermarket workshop if they had the information and the software.
I think that the big thing is the benefit goes to the consumer. Like the biggest benefit is the consumer, the customer, their customer who bought their car. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're the ones that are winning best by ensuring that their car is fixed as best as possible every time. How fantastic is that?
I know. And the biggest thing with car sales is customer experience.
Yeah.
And so if you've had a car and you feel, I like this car, you break down, one example, Charters Towers, lost his keys down a drain. Well, that had to be, he was stuck there for days, had to go into Townsville to get key coding at a dealer. Couldn't be done locally because, you know, the only way of doing it was a $12,000 clip, $12,000 piece of hardware, software. So, you know, that's not a good customer experience. And so then you got to say, well, what are they going to buy next time? So that's why some brands see that they sell cars. They want it serviced right. They don't care if it's 15 years old.
Yeah. I think that's what happened early on in the US with the GM. I think GM was quite quick to give out their service information real early on. And a lot of the some of the older guys that I spoke to from the US, like, yeah, we were just recommending everyone buy GM because they were easy to fix. We had all the information we needed, and they were dominating the market.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So next question. We kind of covered this, but we'll just address this again. But and this is somebody saying maybe it's more of a legislation matter, but it was always allowing us to use J2534. I do, and that is coming round now.
Yeah, so most of them do. There's a couple that have to be sorted out. There's somewhere we've got a couple of car companies where their device, and as you know, that's sort of my background. So their device is actually an MTS series Bosch device with their own coat of paint on it. So it's got every protocol in there, including J2534. But then you can lock that down with firmware to a tough book, and then you say, well, yeah, this is a pass-through device, but you have to buy, a $4,000 tough book with this to be able to do it. So it from our viewpoint, it negates what J2534 is there for, was to avoid having to buy all this stuff.
But it's not
have to be sorted out. Yeah,
it's not law, is it? It's not legislated that they have to allow us access with J2534.
Well, no, it is referred to. So in the you've got the legislation, and then you've got, and it's been a learning curve for me, but you've got the legislation, you've got the rules, and then you've got the explanatory memorandum. Then you've actually got the second reading speech in Parliament. They all actually make up the suite of legal documents. In the explanatory memorandum, it specifically refers to J2534 as something that I can't think of the wording now, but it's referred to in there. So I guess from our viewpoint, we then look at a car company and say, are they offering J2534 in other markets? And they have to, because frankly, I don't know how you separate the software by day, month, year, unless you have a separate VCI. How do you do it? So, you're not going to rent, like an X-Entry, you're not going to rent it for a day.
For a day, yeah, that's right.
So you've got to be able to separate it into a VCI. So look, that's being slowly sorted out, and we keep ticking them off as they add it. Okay. So now Renault, as of last week, now have that option for J2534.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just keep on chipping away until they all come on board. But the only way I think so, those 5 brands I mentioned before, all of them do have J2534 in overseas markets.
Now, what about, only because you mentioned it, the Century guys, because I think I inquired about that a while back, and I think the only way that was possible was with... Oh, hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, but you did break up a bit, didn't you?
I think that was actually my voice breaking up, to be honest. Trying to get his entry, this was early days though, and the only way was by buying or renting their hardware.
Leasing it, yeah.
Yeah. Have they come to a better solution yet, or that's something that is still being worked on?
Yeah, look, we what we would like to see, I guess this is one way to put it, is that the X-Entry pass-through is made available, which does about 85% of what the full tool does. Yeah. That isn't the case at the moment. And that's how they comply in Europe. And they also offer that in the US as well. So we would like to see that in Australia, so that you've got, but at the moment now they lease the X-Entry, the full tool, to their dealers, and that's what they offer to the aftermarket. Yeah. I'm not really sure, frankly. It hasn't been so much the issue as leasing it for 12 months or buying it. Look, it's not really been raised as an issue. The issue is more around the cheaper option for people that are Mercedes specialists.
I think we spoke about this.
I think it's
a while ago. It's not a bad deal.
I think it's a good deal
if you do enough of them.
There's no ongoing cost, so you could just line up a zillion Mercedes, carry out software, module replacements and things like that. There's no extra charge. So whilst you're on the AASRA homepage and it's either $6 or $8 I can't remember. It might be none of them.
It's about $6 I think.
It's a bargain. Every time I log into my manufacturer, which I'm not going to name, it's $10 €10 every time. €10, €10, 10. I want some information. That's €12 every time I
you have
log
to
in.
do that across 30 manufacturers, though.
No, it's up.
I guess. Look, the issue is, and I understand it's a good tool and that it's great. But if you're in a country town and in your customer base there's 3 Mercedes, you're never going to be able to justify buying an X-Entry or leasing an X-Entry. So that's where it becomes a restriction in the market.
I think if you're a Merc specialist, it makes all the sense in the world. Like if I was doing just Mercedes, we do a fair few, but if we were doing just Mercedes, I wouldn't even quite. It's not bad price for what you get. You get tools as well. Get all the stuff you need.
So let me ask you, Costa. Let's say we change it and you can buy a day, or let's say let's say a day. Would you spend your money? Would you do your application and make sure that your business has got Zentry?
Look, I'm a bit old school. If they told me that I could buy the tool for 10 grand and then pay a software subscription yearly, I'd do that. I've got to.
That makes no sense.
Look, it may not, but if I'm going to pay 6 grand to rent somebody else's tool, just for me personally, it's just my personal opinion, it doesn't sit right with me. I'd rather own my tool. And that's just how I run my business.
Well, no,
I own all my stuff, but.
If you could do it with J2534 and buy a day, you're going to spend that time. You're going to get your Zentry account logged. I'm sure there's some costs involved in that. You will put your money into it.
Every car getting serviced will get that added on. If there's a daily of 25 or $30 a day, whatever it's going to be, every Merc that gets serviced will get a plug-in.
But if anybody's got a Zentry for sale and listening, can you let me know? I'll buy it cheap and sell it to Costa.
A real one, thanks.
You mentioned that if you look on our website, you'll find that Mercedes have added day and month. But the problem becomes, because it's an X-Entry, you actually lease it for a day or you lease it for a month. There's obviously freight charges back and forwards. So you end up with what is $511 to lease it for a day. So, that's twice the price of Tesla. Wow. So, that's not viable. But that's because it's not the pass-through device. I mean, to Mercedes' credit, they brought in, I think, initially 20 units. They were ready to provide the market, which was to their credit. And I think they all went pretty quickly to Mercedes specialists. But that issue still has to be resolved. Yeah.
I think
what else
it's not bad.
So we've got a couple of positives here.
What?
One of the members has put every question or concern I have either emailed or opened a support ticket or called. Sorry, I should have read this before I said, can we have a phone number? Or called has been responded to and sorted out as best as AASRA is able to sort it. It's definitely been a help to me and what I'm able to now do without jumping through hoops. So well done. I think it's always nice to it can't always be let's bash AASRA and Rodger. I think you're doing a cracking job and the members are seeing it as well.
I didn't sign my name on that, did I?
No, but
entered by Rodger Nardi.
You've got my PayPal address. So
I can give one more positive feedback on that. I don't know if you even know, Rodger, but you actually helped me out on a BMW tooling MIR.
Did I?
Yes, you did. We had one where I won't say which dealership, but a dealership for
right, I know this
BMW.
one.
Yeah, for a BMW. I won't say which dealership. Pretty much told me that like in my dreams I'll be owning a OE tool. I think the next day when I spoke to them back, it was, how many would you like? Obviously after a few emails between us three, you pretty quickly train. And I think, look, in the scheme of things, I think it was a lack of them understanding what's happening. But I think you guys did a great job at relaying the message. Well, better than I did. I think I got angry and yelled, but I think you guys did a good job in actually explaining to them the process, because they're more than happy to help the following day.
Yeah, and look, we would have contacted. We don't contact the dealers, so we would have contacted BMW, and they would contact the dealer. And in fairness, what probably happens in that is you've contacted. You can imagine there's been communication going out when this legislation went in, saying, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. There's only a couple of brands that involve their dealers. BMW, Volvo, etc. But then depending who you happen to get that picks up the phone, do they ever read the communications? I think it's more a case of they just don't know. But
well, and the
now
reality
they
is,
do.
yeah. Well, and the reality is, how many workshops are calling them on a Wednesday afternoon asking for a OE tool? Like, it's probably very rare. You know, it's probably the first time he's been asked for it. Like, he was confused what I was even asking for. So, I think that you guys did a very quick turnaround time, and the tool is now in my cupboard, nice and warm.
Yeah, fair enough.
So look, I'm just whizzing through some of these questions. A lot of them are similar. Questions about pricing, which is something that AASRA and Rodger are dealing with at the moment, and doing price comparisons there. More security questions. I think you've answered. You know, why we do it to me, and with the help of Costa as well. Look, I do get it, but it would be nice if it was. Is there anything more we can do as a technician or as a VSP, so we don't have to go through, you know, to make it a bit easier? Granted, maybe some you can get this done in 1 hour. You know, you've got your driving license, you know, and it happens really quickly. But I'm sure in some cases that it doesn't. So we're all about getting that car in the shop and out the shop as quickly as possible.
The problem for us is that obviously we don't know. You know, you can have someone that's very, you know, very rigid about it and says, okay, I want to see a license and rego, and then they don't upload it. They just want to confirm you own that car. But then the next person, you know, they might just think, they look like they own the car. You know, so that's where there's got to be that chain of command. The other thing that we do find a little frustrating is that there's our software, and this is what we license from NASTEF. Probably the biggest part of that cost is the automation of key codes. So at the moment now we have Kia, Isuzu, and GM, where that whole process is automated, and that means that when you do say Kia, 30 seconds later, the code is back with you. It's pulling it from a database. We separately run an audit. We run a rolling audit. That's what the lady does in the evenings to double check the documents. So like you're putting up the documents, they're not being checked at that point. 30 seconds later, you get the code. They're being checked later. And then what happens with GM, it's slightly different. This only came in a couple of weeks ago, is you go through our same security request software. When you get to the end of that, where you would normally then go on and pay, it just tells you it's complete, and we've got a PDF on the GM page. You then log into AC Delco and get the code. So, you know, it is, again, it's all relatively instant, except in GM, you've got to log into AC Delco and pick it up. But the software can be done for every car company. Our issue is just getting their IT at the other end, setting it up. Because key codes are an issue. And you know, we've discussed that. I meet with the AAAC every fortnight. And this Friday will be again. Because from our viewpoint, if a dealer can get the code instantly, the aftermarket has to get it. So the benchmark always is, how's this work with the dealer? And it has to work similar. But I've just got an audit report today, and you know, some of the wait times for codes, you know, because we know exactly when you've submitted it, we know exactly when it's been put back in, and you know, there's a lot of these are 1.5 days, and that's not going to happen because it's manual. It means you're relying on someone at the car company opening an email which says to them, you know, this workshop needs this code. They get the code, and then and it's all done through encryption. They then put the code in, and then automatically that generates an email to the person that's requested it saying your code's there. But because of that manual process, you know, means somebody's on lunch or nothing happens, or, you know, we've chased them up and they've come back to us and said he's on leave for 2 weeks, you know. Yeah. So, you know, so there's that bit has to be cleaned up, and you know, we'll be working with and bear in mind with the ACCC, you know, they're that key code scenario, if that was prosecuted, is $180,000 fine.
Yeah, well,
you know, so it's not a minor thing, and it doesn't make sense to hold up key codes when all the documents are there if you can avoid it.
That's awesome. Well, I've done with reading the questions. There is a few more, but they're all similar, and I don't know us to be going over old ground. So I guess the question is you know, is there any is there anything good happening? Anything exciting happening? I mean, obviously there is, but is there anything that you're able to tell us?
Well, look, we don't. We have a memorandum of understanding with the ACCC, and that restricts what we can and can't do. But I'm hopeful that we're very close to some announcements.
Okay.
In the sense of, so if you like, and I can't say who, but if we start and go back to March this year onwards, I can tell you that there's been 7 car companies we have referred, and that means where we've got to the end of the chain with them, we can't come to any. We don't feel that they meet that clause. We're not. It's not up to us legally to determine that. So we take it to a certain point to try and resolve it, and then we provide all the documentation, refer to the ACCC. They've got an infestation of lawyers, and so they can check all that. And then that's it's. We don't hear any more about it, unless there's some questions back and forwards, and now and then there is. But then at some point they'll make an announcement and say, But because of the fines in Australia, our legislation's far stronger as far as those fines go than in Europe or the US. So when I say 180,000, that's a breach of one clause. So it's quite feasible if a car company weren't supplying, or pick day and month or something like that, or more than likely some of these things can be 3 breaches. So you can very quickly get to $500,000. So we'll wait, and I think when they're ready to do a press release, then they contact us, and when we know, and then we'll circulate that to the market, let people know, because that's one of the things we get, and it's frustrating, is people say, they think we've got powers in this, and we don't, and so all we can do is refer it to them, and that's how the legislation works.
Look, I'm gonna throw a spanner in the works here, but could people think that because the manufacturers also helped fund AASRA?
Well, no,
could we say, like, you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, because that was something surprised me at the beginning. So just explain how that works. And from my viewpoint, it makes, so if someone is a participating brand or a non-participating brand, you could say, do we favour the ones that they pay AASRA? There's a figure for 2 years, so we have to build their website and we do the processing. The reason they do that is it's far cheaper than them employing one person for 3 or 4 hours a day. You know what I mean? So that's why it's economical for them. Now, the non-participating brands, BMW and VAG and whatever else, that's because they've got a global system in place, so they don't need to reinvent the wheel. But no, from our viewpoint, if I was going to, look, off the top of my head, if I was going to say we've referred 7, I'm going to say 5 of those are paying AASRA to processing the vetting.
Okay.
So it's not. Cool. No, from my viewpoint, it has to be. And look, and the pricing and the money they pay does scale down once we get past the initial build cost of their website and whatever else. So 2 separate things. Yeah. But I understand how you could think that, but 2 separate things.
I think you've answered that perfectly. Look, I was kind of on the fence with it, well, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but I think it makes
sense to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I should say the board don't actually have, and that's a board decision, they don't approve or disprove a referral. So, as you know, the board's made up of two from the aftermarket, 2 from the OE, if you like. So, so they don't approve. I got a courtesy that all goes across them, then they get to see it. But the approval basically comes from here. Because at the end of the day, if I refer something to the ACCC and they think, well, that's ridiculous, they'll just have a bit of a giggle and throw it in the bin. But so, it's not like as if there's any, in making a referral, I'm really just saying, look, you need to have a look at this. And that's really what it is. And that means their legal people need to look at it.
Like you said, that's probably when you've exhausted all avenues, right? Like in the day, I think the ideal situation is that the OEs and the aftermarket and all get along and we can all benefit in the long run, which means the consumer benefits in the long run. That's the glorious.
Everybody in the chain will benefit. If we've got a better, just going back to when Costa bought his tool, he ended up buying it from a dealership, and the dealership was so easy to deal with. He's
They're
like,
my BMW.
This is now where I buy my parts from. So already he's been taken on a journey. He's happy. We spend money where we're happy. So he's probably now going to think, well, I'm going to buy more genuine parts, which is always the best way. There's nothing wrong with aftermarket parts, but look, genuine is genuine, isn't it? We can work together in a much friendlier manner. It's not going to be us and them, the independent versus the dealers. We can do better in 2023 coming into 24, I think. We're obviously with AASRA's help.
And we try and give for my position, I don't want to, particularly when you're dealing with an individual at a car company, you're not dealing with, the actual brand. You're dealing with an individual that's employed, he's employed by a car company, and he's sort of protecting, them, if you like, but he may not be across the legislation. So what I try and avoid, what we always try and avoid, is throwing someone under a bus. You can imagine if they come back to us and say, we're not going to do this and this, and I refer to the ACCC, and next minute the MD or the CEO of the company gets a fine for $500,000, and then they call him into the office, and he said, I've watched some episodes of Perry Mason. I thought I could do that.
Oops.
So from my viewpoint, we always try and say, ultimately we say, have you run this past your legal counsel or your legal department? Because that's what we want to. That's all we want to know before we put something forward. We want to know that individual has frankly got his back covered.
Yeah, that's a nice way. That's a good way. And I think that even having, like yourself, having the relationship with that individual obviously help. I guess if hurdles come up and the person on a more personal level, there's always generally more communication, easier ways that can be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, guys, we've been on for just over an hour. Obviously, one of my last questions, Rodger, is going to be when can we chat next, and can we maybe chat with you in the ACCC also? But it's not my birthday. I would like to see.
I would like to. I think it'd be good to have the AASRA, because part of this with the ACCC, and look, they're a good team of people. So I think there's 5 people allocated to this, and I think that's headed by the same person that headed up the airbag recall and whatever else. So, but bear in mind, these aren't technical people. We're not talking about ex-mechanics or something here. So we really do have to try and explain a lot of this to them. But they're getting across. I told the head of that thing that give me a bit longer and I'll have him sticking a code reader on his car. But so we'll get him there. But no, it's a learning process for them. Not only some of the technical stuff when we talk pass through or whatever, but actually the market itself.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't mind trying to get
just an idea. Just thought I'd throw it out.
No. I'm keen for that to happen. Yeah.
But look, I guess thank you for what you've done, Rodger. I think everybody appreciate it. I certainly appreciate what you've done, and I was right when I first met you. I was like, I reckon this is the guy, and you've proved me right there. So thank you very much.
I'm enjoying it. I feel like it's in my. It's something that's very interest to me, and I'd like to see it all established and getting there. Slowly there's benchmarks and getting there, and just getting all these car companies online. That's sort of. Once we get them there, once we get past that initial thing, then it's just a matter of fine tuning.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Right, so appreciate your time, mate.
Yeah. We'll be speaking in 2 years, because you can't tell me there's things happening without telling me. It's like saying don't press the red button. I'll call you in 5 minutes.
as soon as we know that there's something, believe me, I'll be circulating that real quickly.
Don't forget to join our private Facebook page if you are an automotive technician, and also subscribe to our YouTube and our podcast channel. They are all called The Garage Network. Thanks, guys, and see you next time.